Welcome to Think, React, Lead, bringing you insights and strategies for thinking as an executive, reacting like a soldier, and leading in all aspects of your life. Here's your host, executive coach and leadership speaker, Faussette.
Welcome to the Think, React, Lead podcast, where you will be provided insights on thinking as an executive, reacting like a soldier, and leading in various aspects of your career and personal life. I am your host, Faussette, and today we are going to discuss more leadership influence. As of late, it's one of my favorite topics. But today specifically, we're going to talk about how an influencer nurtures people. But we're going to do something a little bit different. Normally, I do this in a studio. Today, I'm at home, and we're just going to go for a walk. So we're walking out the front door, and as we are doing this, let's talk about how an influencer nurtures people. Yes, it's probably March time frame as you're listening to this, but I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, which makes it pretty gorgeous out. I think it's about 75 degrees out today, maybe 72, but more on nurturing people. See, the height of your influence upon others depends on the depth of your concern for them. What I have found is that many leaders love their position more than their people, and when that happens, they soon lose their position. Few leaders love their position more than the people. But whether you think it's a few or it's a lot, we've all had those experiences in our leadership journey, whether somebody treated us unfairly. And when I say unfairly, I'm not talking like to the ends of the spectrum. I'm talking just maybe you didn't feel nurtured, or you have a background comparable to mine, where I grew up in the 80s. Both my parents are veterans, and your parents don't have to be the veterans. Maybe they're just a little tougher in their leadership style. And then I went into the military and became a cop. And as I jumped into the corporate world, there was a level of lack of compassion that I had in my leadership style. But I learned early on that if I could just treat people nice, give them what maybe they don't realize that they need, nurture them, then I can create a larger and greater team. See, achievers care about people. There was a study done, and it was talking about how nice guys get the best results. And according to the study by a research outfit called Telemetrics, they looked at 16,000 executives studied, and 13% as high achievers tended to care about people. So let's talk about what that looks like. High achievers in the corporate world care about people. How does that benefit them? I think they go into this not worrying about or thinking about a benefit. They just know it's the right thing to do. If we look at the meaning or how nurturing is defined, nurturing people does not mean needing people. We don't have to coddle them, right? But nurturing people does mean a commitment to them. And if we think about how committed we are to, let's say, a hobby, or let's say our children, and then we take that same level of commitment to not just our personal growth, but the growth of those that we influence. And again, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So these could be people that report to you, or just peers in your environment that look up to you for leadership. Understanding, going back to the reference of your family or your hobbies, more oftentimes than not, we love those two examples, and love finds a way. We all know that. When you love something, you go all in without expecting anything back. Nurturing people does mean loving people. There was a quote by Henry Drummond, and he says, "You will find as you look back upon your life that the moments when you have really lived are the moments when you have done things in a spirit of love. And that quote's been with me probably for about 15 years now. And for me, looking back and thinking to myself, have I done or am I doing this in a spirit of love, is really what motivates me. It's what allows me to operate with integrity with groups of people, or even on a one-to-one basis. Nurturing people also means lifting people to a higher level. Ask yourself this: in your journey, would you be okay leading somebody, mentoring somebody, coaching somebody, and they excel in a space that you might be pretty good in? Like, naturally, our first response is, yes, I'd be okay with that. But I want you to ask yourself, would you truly be okay internally if somebody excelled in an area greater than you? I remember a time that I was coaching another speaker, and at the time I was coaching them, I was making more, I had more clients than they did. I was speaking more than they were, and at the time making more money than they were. Well, after I got finished coaching them, they started getting more speaking gigs. They started making more money. And I would say about 90% of me was happy for them, because I've done my job. They've grown and they took action. But there was a 10% or small portion of me that just was not, I can honestly say I wasn't happy. It wasn't supposed to work out that way. Got cars driving by me as I'm walking back to the house. But it wasn't supposed to work out that way. But I had to ask myself, yes, it is. Because any good leader should be okay with somebody excelling in an area greater than them. Now, bring this back to the workplace. Are you coaching people and mentoring people and find that they promote faster than you? Are you okay with that? The answer should be yes. If you're not, that's okay. Just address and adjust what you're doing as an individual so that you can grow from that. Now, as you are developing yourself as a leader, and we all should be, there should never be a time that we're not growing or developing as a leader. I want you to think about, what more can you do to nurture those around you? And like I said, nurturing's not coddling. All nurturing is simply adding value on a higher level than you currently are, but coming from a place of love. And that ties into our next step, where it's our faith in people. An influencer has faith in people. Understand that assets make things possible, but people make things happen. And we all want things to happen in our space, whether we are an entrepreneur, whether we are in the corporate world, or even doing both. Leadership is influence. We just talked about that. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, every person is entitled to be valued by their best moments. Let's pause right there for a minute. And I'm going to repeat that. Every person is entitled to be valued by their best moments. How many of us, maybe as parents or maybe growing up as children, have had somebody continually remind us, or we continually remind somebody else of their failures? For example, some kids aren't that honest, 6, 7, 8 years of age. Maybe some of you weren't honest as kids. But what if the people that you were dishonest to held you to that? No matter any of the good things that you did in your life, what if they were, well, no, you're lying. Dom, you always lie. That's just what you do. You lie. Mind you, I haven't lied in like 10 years, right? That's an example. Would it be fair? I would say no. But with our teams or people that we're leading, if they're, let's just say late, if they're late, say 3 times in a 90-day period, are they a late person? Or were there just 3 instances or moments in their life that caused them to be late? Have you looked into that? Have you found out, right? Is it necessarily a trend? Maybe not. See, in leading others, there are 3 feelings that we cannot possess. And this is extremely important. I want you, if you're not taking notes, I want you to pause this right here, grab a pen and paper, or just listen to it, but go back to this. Number 1 is fear. If we are afraid of people, we cannot confront them. Some of the most heartfelt leaders that I've met in different corporations I worked for lacked the ability to have what I like to call crucial conversations. See, it's very easy to manage or lead or supervise people from a standpoint of, oh, they're great. Everybody's getting along. You're doing well. Here's some feedback for you. Keep doing what you're doing. The sales are awesome. But so many leaders out there are afraid to confront the issues. And that a lot of time ties back to relationships. How many of us are married, or how many of you are married and, or in relationships and are afraid to address or confront certain conversations that may be adverse or may not be positive in nature? You can't be afraid to do that. You have to have some sort of command presence. And I did a talk with a group of entrepreneurs about command presence over the weekend. And command presence is being able to state what you're going to state with sincerity and compassion, even though it may not be, I'd say, a positive in nature. And it could potentially hurt the other person's feelings. But if the person that you're talking to knows where you're coming from and you're coming from a place of love, they'll understand that you're just giving them feedback, right? You can't be afraid of confronting people that maybe need to hear what you have to say, but know that as you're saying it, it should be coming from a place of compassion and leadership, not from a place of, I told you so, as I'm pointing my finger in your face. Number 2, dislike. If we dislike people, we should not lead them. That is so true. I've heard a couple different times other managers say things like, oh, I'm just an overpaid, what do they call themselves? Overpaid babysitter, or a glorified babysitter. Well, if you feel that you're monitoring children, then they're only going to act as what you've called them. So why would we say that? Why would we say, oh, I can't stand that employee? We can't say that. I'm assuming everybody has said that at least once, especially in the beginning stages of your career in leadership or managing people. There's going to be people that you don't like, but as you progress and you grow as a leader, you cannot not like them. I remember a time that I was deployed to Africa. Mind you, I was 19. When I was 14, I got into a fight with my neighbor's son. And my neighbor was in the military. He was in the Air Force. And after we got into a fight, myself and his son, we were the same age. I think I was a year older than him, if that. But he didn't like me, which I get it. As a father, son gets beat up. You're not going to like the guy that beat up your son or the kid that beat up your son. Excuse me. At the age of 19, I saw my neighbor. I was at a checkpoint in Africa. It was myself and my dog Clint. And I was by myself, obviously with my dog. And in the distance, I see a truck coming up. And I could tell it was a friendly. As the truck's pulling up, there's 3 people in there. There's 2 officers and a chief master sergeant. And I'm looking at this chief master sergeant, which is an E9 enlisted in the Air Force. And I realized it was my neighbor. He jumps out of the truck. I tell my dog to sit and stay. And I almost run towards him like a kid as I'm in full combat gear. And I'm like, hey, man, long time no see. He's talking to me. I'm talking to him. We're smiling, high five and hug. And I think that lasted for about 3 minutes. He got back in his truck and he left. You know, he didn't recall the time that he didn't like me. What he recalled was all of the times that he did like me. And in that moment, we're in the middle of nowhere. We had something in common. That's what connected us. We were 2 Americans serving for the same United States Air Force. And had a happen meeting that just happened in the middle of literally nowhere. He didn't dislike me at that moment. He was a leader. He liked me. And I bring that up because I ask that you find something to like about the people that you lead. That's extremely important. You have to find something that you like about the people that you lead. If they get on your nerves, well, that's your problem, right? If they dislike you, well, you need to find a reason that they can like you. You need to get to know them. You cannot lead people and dislike them. Last but not least, number 3, contempt. If we look down on people, we will not value them. And that goes back to what I said earlier. You're a leader and you say to yourself, I'm just a glorified babysitter, or these people will never get it. Well, they're not these people. And stop calling them your employees, right? Because if your employees left, you wouldn't have a team. You wouldn't have a job. If you left, they'd get another manager. They'd get another director. They'd have another CEO. So who's more important, you or them? I'm going to go with them. And I'll read that again. Contempt. If we look down on people, we will not value them. I want you to start valuing the people that you lead wholeheartedly. Think about ways you can value the people that you lead. Because once you start valuing them and not being afraid to have tough conversations with them, so confront them, and actually liking the people that you lead, your job becomes much easier. You start creating now a legacy. You start creating a brand for yourself. And that's what leadership is about. It's influence, but there's got to be positive influence there for growth, for you and for them. Again, my name is Dom Faussette with Think, React, Lead. I can be found on YouTube /Think, React, Lead. Obviously, other social media platforms, Facebook, Dom Faussette, or Think, React, Lead, and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat, which I'm just starting to use. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. My website is www.thinkreactlead.com. Thank you again for joining me on this Think, React, Lead podcast. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk soon.
You've been listening to Think, React, Lead. To connect with your authentic purpose, contact Dom at www.thinkreactlead.com.